Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Long and Thick podcast, where we help you navigate the noise and cut through the bullshit in the health and wellness space. We are both having a hard time not laughing because I sound like Johnny Cash teabagged me with 500 pounds of cigarette ash and water. And so apologies for that, but thank you for being here. Today we are interviewing Dr. Kyle Iguchi. He is a PT out in California. I've been following Dr. Kyle for quite some time. I found him on Instagram as, I think it was Dr. Dunks, and I was like, oh, nice, a sneakerhead. And I had seen that he was really into some PRI stuff and that he worked with pro basketball athletes and has a strong emphasis with ankle rehab. I really like his approach. We've spoken here and there just in passing online, and I thought it would be a cool episode to interview somebody who specializes with those types of athletes and has the niche within ankles in particular. So if you're somebody who's dealt with ankle stuff, this is probably going to be a very great and helpful episode for you. We have a Substack, we have a Patreon, we have a website, we got merch that we are just about to finalize. Fun stuff is on the way. And this episode is brought to you by Personal Trainer U, PTU Biomechanics Course 1.0 from Jason Colley. PTU provides a structural lens through which trainers, coaches, and movement professionals alike can understand movement, biomechanics, assessment, and programming. See movement differently, coach with intent, help more clients. If you are interested in signing up, we have a fabulous discount, Long Thick 15, and you will get a nice discount. Check it out. Thanks for joining us for our chat with Dr. Kyle Iguchi. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Kyle Iguchi. He is a PT out in California. I found Kyle on Instagram many moons ago and have just waited to connect. And now that we have the podcast platform, I figured this would be a great time to actually get him on here and chat. So Kyle, thanks for being here. How are you doing on this lovely Friday?
Appreciate you guys. Pleasure to be here. Doing good. Just looking forward to chatting about something I think we all find common ground with and seeing where the conversation takes us.
Hell yeah, man. Well, appreciate you being here. Can you share a little bit about who you are and what you do outside of just the, ramble that I gave of being a PT? Because I think that means a lot of different stuff. Like, how do you describe, what you are to people?
Yeah. Well, I think personally, first and foremost, father. So I have a daughter. I would say that I'm a truth seeker. And I like to think deeply about things, not just in the PT realm and training realm, but just in general. And then what I do, like you mentioned, I'm a physical therapist. I'm also a strength coach, so a CSCS. My primary demographic, I guess, is like professional and collegiate basketball players. And I also work with high school athletes. So where I'm at now, I kind of started in reverse order with high school, and then that naturally turned into college, and then things kind of, built up from there. But yeah, that's a basic brief overview. So mainly working with basketball players. I see some, what we would call Gen Pop people every now and then, like friends and family and stuff like that. But really in the hoop scene.
Yeah. So I have to imagine that you play basketball yourself. I sort of already know the answer, but do you play basketball?
I do. Wish I played more, but I always say, like, obviously cardiovascular health is a very important thing. And I really struggle to do cardio unless I'm chasing the ball around. So it gives me a nice distraction.
How long have you been a baller? Is that a long time endeavor?
Yeah, actually, so not as, I didn't start as early as most. I started playing baseball. My grandpa introduced me to baseball. Then actually went into hockey because Mighty Ducks. Yeah, random.
Hell yeah.
And then I made my way into basketball, mainly because it was cool. All my friends were playing basketball and stuck with that. So started 8th grade and played in high school, didn't play in college, but played recreationally after.
Yeah. Right on.
Did anything in the sports pursuit athletics world kind of cue you into your profession, or do they kind of both happen organically, exclusively?
No, like major injuries, as a lot of PTs kind of, it's like they were on that side of the table and then they transition over to the other side because they either had a good experience or they want to make a better experience for other people. So that wasn't my story. I was like career confused, as probably most people are.
Respect.
In undergrad, I actually thought I was going to be a lawyer, and then those upper division law school classes were not for me. I also didn't know if I wanted to argue for the rest of my life for a profession. So then I just, I was like, well, what do I enjoy doing? Like, what feels like play? And is there a way that I could make money off of doing that? And so that naturally led back into the sports world. I thought about training. I thought about coaching. I didn't feel like I was good enough as a player to be a coach. Didn't really want to be a trainer. I wanted to have a little bit more options in case, something, you know what I mean? Like you have a lot of options as PT. So that was kind of like the next thing. It was a respectable career. So I went that direction and I love it.
Yeah.
So when did the CSCS part come in? And can you explain what that difference is between that and, almost just getting a regular NASM thing or, being a physical therapist?
So in PT school, I got the advice to coach, as in like become a better communicator, because that's going to be a practical skill, not only for your profession, but just in life. And I got an opportunity to work with Cypress High School, which is a local high school out here, not a powerhouse, but also not scrubs. And so it was kind of like a nice, and also I think the main opportunity there was they didn't have like a dedicated strength coach like some of the private schools have. They're kind of just flying off the wings of whatever the head coach had, and he didn't have a whole lot in terms of physical preparation. So it was a good opportunity. And then, it's just like I hadn't graduated at the time, so I didn't have any kind of, mainly legal protection, just in case anything went wrong. So I needed to have, I couldn't become a UPT until I was done with school. So, then becoming a trainer, it was kind of like I had the prereqs, I took the test, a lot of the information needed for the test I had already learned in PT school. So, and then I knew I wanted to eventually get back into being a PT for athletes in the future. So I was like, makes sense. It doesn't seem so far of a tangent, And, I do think it's important, especially for PTs who are working with athletes, to be knowledgeable in strength and conditioning principles.
Totally. Yeah, we'll come back to some of how the practices within PT school, there's lots of different opinions, right, of what prepares you and do you actually get your education outside of that and all that. So I'm excited to pick your brain about that. But before we do, tell me how you landed on the niche of like ankles. Obviously you treat more than ankles, but in our modern marketing life and world, we sort of got to pick a, thing. So how'd you end up there?
They just kids, athletes, just people in general, just spraining ankles left and right. Like it's crazy. Even I was just talking to one of the coaches who he wasn't the head coach at the high school that I started at, but he's now an assistant coach there. And he was like, yeah, last week or the past 2 weeks, 5 people sprained their ankle. Like what's in the water?
5.
And then literally every single AAU tournament, like almost every single time I go, maybe this is a little bit of an exaggeration, but if you look at the stats, there's like thousands of ankle sprains in the United States alone every single day. and like millions per year. And those are the ones that are documented. And I've had probably 8 ankle sprains and I never went to the doctor for them. So that number has to be inflated. And I just look at it as like, if there is this reoccurring problem that is so prevalent, not even just amongst basketball players, but just any court or field sport athlete, like there might be something missing in whether it's from neglect or with how people prepare, that could be improved. And so kind of naturally got drawn into that world. So yeah.
What was the first biggest, like, holy shit, this is really powerful thing in getting towards treating ankles in particular that you remember picking up and then seeing the upstream effects, right? Because you get all your Vibram people and toe sock like separator folks that are like, the foot is everything. And it's so important, but that's not everything, right? So what was one of the biggest, like, first super impactful ways of treating, or things you learned or things you saw that even got you further, like, to appreciate that?
I think it was just watching them happen. So, you know, typically, I mean, the vast majority of ankle sprains is a inversion sprain where your foot rolls out. And then it's like, okay, is that position ever trained? No. So but then can we train it? Yes, we can, right? So I think it just came from being, you know, like a student of the game in a way, like not thinking that you have all the answers, like being humble enough to ask questions. I think asking questions is super important. It's like, why is this problem here? It's like, okay, well maybe like, let's look at the issue that's happening. And then if, you know, similar to low back pain, knee pain, insert muscle group or joint pain, like what's causing it? And, you know, it's oftentimes a mixture of either the position or the amount of load going through the area or both. And I think both of those two situations with ankles and ankle sprains, the position where the injury is occurring, as well as the amount of load that's going through the area when someone especially is jumping and then they land on someone's foot, it's kind of like it doesn't matter if you're wearing an ankle brace or not, or if your ankles are taped, like that thing is going to sprain.
Yeah, it's just rolling over no matter what.
Yeah. And then it's just like, I don't know if that's a good enough answer.
Yeah.
You know, like you're just shit out of luck. Like it's just going to happen. I think that I thought that we could do better, and I know now that we can.
Yeah. So it's a perfect sorry, Daniel, were you going to say something?
You might be going already where I'm thinking of too, but so you see a lot of like the dynamism and the ballistic things happening in athletic sport. I happen to know of a couple family members and a close friend of mine that were never really athletic, but invariably they're spraining their ankle, like, you know, once a week. It's like the people that just like can like walk normally and just roll their ankle randomly. Now, is there a narrative that you can express with people to want to strengthen their ankles outside of supporting their athleticism? Because in that sense, it's almost necessary for longevity of career and overall health. But because you do work with general population, is that a harder conversation to push and have stick with people that don't have the same athletic ambitions, but still potentially have the same risk, if not more, in their ankle or other joints?
Yeah, I think that if they have never sprained their ankle, then it's kind of like, you know, you're probably doing okay. But especially those folks who like sprain their ankle stepping off of a curb. It's like, I mean, unless you want this to continue to happen. And as we know, just from like a nervous system standpoint, if you keep injuring the same part of your body, it's going to leave a imprint on it, like in the back of your mind, right? Like, I have weak ankles. It's like, okay, well, you can either accept that or you can do something about it. And then I think this becomes a question of like, you know, if I'm talking to a person like that who has had those experiences and maybe they don't have like athletic ambitions, but it's like, you have one body for your entire life, and you can do nothing. And I'm not saying that you're guaranteed to continue to experience these problems, but you can do nothing and take a risk, or you can be proactive and try and do the best that you can to prevent these issues from happening. Or if you're in a similar situation, you might maybe instead of it being like a grade 2 sprain, it's just like a couple days of soreness and you can get back to your life. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
And then I don't try and force any advice. It's like, we don't want to give unsolicited advice, but I think when you invite them into your thought process in terms of like, okay, well, I have two options. I can either do something or I cannot do something. Most people, I would think, because it is their body, that they would want to do something. Like, okay, sure. Then that brings them into the next phase, which is like, or the next question, which is like, okay, what do I do? And then I think if you get someone to that place and you can explain to them, it's like you kind of got to read the room in a little bit, where someone who is a high level athlete who's getting paid millions of dollars is probably going to be willing, you would hope, is probably going to be willing to do more and inconvenience their life a little bit more than the layperson or the everyday person. But based on, how much they're willing to sacrifice or how much time they're willing to spend, I think we as clinicians and coaches can kind of meet them where they're at, right? It's like, hey, you don't work out at all. Okay, let's think of something that you can do at home with very minimal equipment that you can just do while you're watching TV, whenever you think about it, right? I'm not even going to give you like, you got to do it every day, but just have it in your living room. And if you're bored, instead of sitting on your ass, you can get 5 minutes of work in, and that 5 minutes is going to compound, and you're going to feel stronger and you're going to become more confident. It's almost like you kind of got to sell the end result in a way, and try and bring them into that vision. And then it just makes them going through the process worthwhile if they see the end.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned some really key things in there, and I'm haunted and also relieved thinking back to all the conversations I have with somebody who's like, all right, what do I do and how much and how often and all this stuff. And you have such a freeing version of that, especially for somebody who's so low entry point, right? Like whenever you think about it and like put it out in the living room is such a great, like, yeah, I saw the thing and then I did it. You've come up with a pretty cool method of doing that exact thing at home. Can you share some of the tools that you use? And this will be especially bonus for any viewers in terms of, lacrosse ball and weight plate and some of the gangster hacks that you've devised.
Yeah. So going back to, I'm going to try and set this up. So we know that, at least with ankle sprains specifically, they happen when you're standing. They happen at end ranges. So when your ankle is in a, what we call non-neutral position. So if your ankle's flat, I guess if you're just standing, like I've never seen someone sprain their ankle when their ankle is completely flat, because I'm pretty sure it's impossible. And so we need to get to the dangerous positions so that we can develop strength and confidence there, so that when you are forced there against your will and accidentally, if you will, it's like the first time being there, right? So how can we do that in a living room with minimal equipment? So if you have a lacrosse ball and if you have a weight plate, then you have a unstable surface that you're standing on. And then you put your foot like so. So I like to do the ball of the foot right on top, but you can start with literally the middle of your foot. And then if this is the ground, then you're just touching each corner of the, I guess there's no corners on a circle, but you get the idea. You're touching each edge of the circle to the ground as you are trying to isolate that rotational movement to the ankle and not just like hula hoop your hips around.
Sure.
And so when you're doing that, you're going through plantar flexion, going through eversion or inversion, depending on what foot you're using, and then dorsiflexion. And you're doing that. And the only way that you can move the plate around is if you are essentially pressing into the ground as you do that. And so it actually gives a very challenging and effective stimulus for the purpose of strengthening those end range positions. And you don't have to start with a 2.5 pound plate. I mean, plates are different sizes, but I generally will start with like a 10-pound plate. The larger the circumference or the radius, depending on which one you're measuring of the plate, the larger, the less aggressive the angle is. So a smaller plate is going to be more aggressive, which is obviously going to be more challenging. The larger plate is going to be less aggressive, so a easier starting point.
Makes sense.
And then on top of that, you can layer this, I guess, exercise or training method with holding a weight. So now if you're 150 pounds, you can become 170 pounds and just progressively overload the tissues. You can also challenge your vestibular system, right? Maybe instead of just doing circles and you're kind of looking at the ground like most people do when they're trying to balance, you can look up, you do head turns, or you could even do it with your eyes closed. I've seen basketball players who do ankle circles, as I call them, and they're dribbling and they're doing pound dribbles, or they're doing crossover dribbles, which is going to challenge, it's going to add another layer of like instability. So there's a lot of things that you can do. It's very, aside from the fact that you have to lug around a 2.5 to a 10-pound weight, which is the only downside.
I think it's very reasonable.
Yeah. And it's unlike, they make larger versions of this like on Amazon, right? But it's the angle specifically that it has to mimic, or it has to get close to where you're actually going to sprain, which is usually like 30-ish degrees of inversion, which is a lot. So if you do the same thing with a big plate, like I think the one on Amazon is like this big, you're maybe getting like 10 to 15 degrees. So is it better than doing nothing? Sure. But it's not going to prepare you for the 30 in the same way that you can do like shoulder rotation, like a dumbbell or whatever, or a cable machine. But if you get into an arm bar, like you're going to get messed up.
Yeah, true. It's not getting to that precipice to where the damage actually occurs. You're not doing enough close to the sun, if you will.
Yeah. No, exactly. And the cool thing is I've had people, and as with anything, you got to do it consistently, but I've had people who have done it consistently and then they've gone back to playing and they've had the infamous step on someone's foot moment. And then they're like, whoa, I walked away and I was completely fine. And I was like,
sick.
Of course you are. Like it just makes sense. You know what I mean?
It does. When you're doing it does.
You see someone's ankle going like this and it's like, oh yeah, I get it. And I think when that light bulb moment happens where like it's not so complex that you can't see how the thing you're doing is applicable for the thing you're trying to get better at. Like if it's like, oh yeah, I get that, then that's, in my opinion, how you get buy-in, because people clearly see and understand, if I do this more, then I get better at that. And if I suck at doing drill, no wonder my ankles are spraining all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's such a great approach. I'm sure you've used like a Mobo board before. Have you seen those? It's like a similar kind of thing, but there's like two positions. You can go into like 1 and 3 and 2 and 4, and you get like some, plantar flexion and good pressure, and the big toe is cut out. I actually like this better because you get much more rotation, and I think it's so much more accessible. The mobile board's like well over $100. This is not. Sure, it's a little like weird to lug around your plate and ball, but at the end of the day, if you want to avoid the shit, then you're probably going to do the thing, like you said, the pro athlete who cares about doing it. Question for you. about folks who have had any kinds of pins or fusions in the feet and some of the, things that start to limit the bony architecture in the foot? Like, what's your go-to? How would you help somebody like that? How have you helped people like that?
Yeah. It depends I hated that answer
No, you're good. Cause it's the truth.
Yeah, no, it is. It depends on let's say it's a fusion or like a hardware situation, like what kind of hardware, like where is it? Like, I worked with an athlete recently who had a Jones fracture, and he had a plate on his fifth met, and it's like, that's not going to affect you, right? If you have, I don't know, whatever else, maybe it would affect it more. You know what I'm saying? So I think it just depends on what the constraint is and what joint cannot move because of X, Y, or Z reason. And as far as like the question of like, can you do this if I have this? What I would say is yes. And also you should, and also just use a bigger plate, start with a rotational range of motion that you can perform without pain, without feeling like, oh, my knee feels kind of tweaked. Like, you don't want to do that. So you have to, as the same thing with any new exercise, you want to make sure that you're listening to your body. And you should have a degree of success. I think the ideal or difficulty level for a corrective exercise or for just like any training stimulus is kind of on the cusp of like, it's difficult, but I'm still successful with it. It can't be too easy. It can't be so difficult that your movement quality is terrible. But you kind of got to find that spot for you, and that's going to look different depending on one's level of balance. It's going to look different depending on how many ankle sprains that you've had. Like if you are a chronic ankle instability person, like you might need to scale way back. And obviously this is where having someone help you make those decisions is very helpful. You just have to be more, if you're going to do it on your own, you have to know yourself and your body really well. And that's why people pay for PT.
For sure. True. Yeah, that question in particular got rose by a gentleman who didn't know we had a podcast. And I was like, oh yeah, we're interviewing this gentleman who is PT, really into like ankle mechanics, stability, strengthening. And it's just like, ask him about fused ankles. And I'm like, all right, so we're going to do that. But gentleman is a power lifter by nature. But
Okay. I mean, another thing too is like, there's not only one road to Rome, right? Like I love ankle circles, don't get me wrong, but it's not the only thing. There's like, how well does his rear foot move? How well can he pronate and supinate his midfoot? What does his big toe look like? It's, I don't know who told me this, but like this is not mind-blowingly new or a new concept, but it's just like an oh duh kind of thing. Especially for like an everyday person who's not a physical therapist or a trainer. Whenever there are a lot of joints in a small region of the body, it implies that there should be a lot of movement happening a lot of different places. Sorry, maybe not a lot of movement happening, but like there should be a little bit of movement that is being contributed by a lot of different joints. So feet, hands, spine, you don't want to have just your middle back locked up and the only place you can move is through your neck or through your lumbar spine. Same is true for your foot or ankle, right? If you have a constraint, like you can't move through your heel, for example, then it's probably going to be really important that like your tib fib can move and your midfoot can move and your big toe can move. And it's just like I would probably recommend to him to at least get assessed, to have someone help set realistic expectations as well as clarify like, okay, what are the next couple steps look like? And then for him, all right, let me work on those things for say 1 to 3 weeks and then come back in and we can do another touch point and, I can go from there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that answer, both in terms of one, any practitioner generally should not just take something on an auditory input and be like, this is probably what it is. Like the assessment is incredibly, incredibly important. And we talk about that a lot. And also the other thing is that we talk about this often, that the body is a chaos machine, that it's also a running experiment, and you adjust one rock and a bunch of pebbles and sand shifts in another direction. And I'm using that analogy very loosely, but you're going to be chasing a moving target no matter when you start doing adjustments. So people thinking that they're going to see a PT or an LMT or a movement specialist or anything or chiro and be like, oh, miraculous after one visit. It's just like, you're just going to open the first can of worms, and we're just potentially going to be moving your body in a direction. So managing expectations too, that like the treatment and the length of that treatment is very, very important, because very seldomly do you just get one session in and be like, oh, we're done. We got what we needed.
Yeah, for sure. And to add on that, like, I try to always, because if that conversation doesn't go well and those expectations are not either clarified or worked through together, it creates frustration on both ends. Like obviously the client or the patient is going to be unhappy, but also like you're like, well, I'm not a magician. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta, what I always try to remind people is that at the end of the day, your body is amazing and it's capable of a lot of crazy good things. We just have to provide the right inputs, and we have to do so at a regular and consistent frequency in order to change anything.
For sure.
And that might not be what you want to hear, but it is the reality. And the same is true for your foot and ankle as it is for my neck or my low back. It's not like human design is not prejudiced against one person and not towards another. So I think that doing that in those kinds of conversations, just reminding them that there's nothing wrong with you, and anything that you have to apply, I do as well. You sit yourself on their side of the table. And then it's like, and then I think it helps people who maybe had different expectations going into the process now have the same expectation that you have, even for yourself. And I find that to be helpful.
Yeah, that's very wise.
I was going to say that's excellent advice. Anybody listening or watching can take that and appreciate and bring it to future appointments, or if they're trying to vet providers. I feel like that's a skill that so few people have, tragically, in a modern era where so many things are just these like quick fix solutions and all that kind of shit. Like it gets way too noisy. I mean, it's the epitome of why we started this podcast in the first place, is just trying to bring good people together in the broad span of health and wellness and talk about like, let's hear from actual people who do this. Like this is the way to your health and wellness. That being said, a lot of the principles that you touched on regarding ankle mechanics and treating them are going to probably apply to the rest of the body, like you alluded to. So this is my own personal question. I don't even think I put this in your cheat sheet here, but I'm curious what your exposure around like PRI has been, your thoughts on it, the cults, the Kool-Aid, all the things, and then how do you balance those things, and how do you actually take, all of your experience and wisdom from years doing what you've been doing and filter it down to the shit that really works for pro athletes? And, we'll obviously work with Gen Pop people. I know that was 77 questions in one giant ass.
Yeah. I'm going to answer the easy. Well, I'm going to do it this way. So what's important? I think we'll start there. Because PRI is great. But I think it makes sense to start here and then go there. So what's important is specificity, in terms of what you do and why you do it. If you are a marathon run, I mean, this is an obvious example, but if you're a marathon runner, but you train like a power lifter, not specific, probably not going to work. Is there some carryover? Sure, maybe, but because the body is complex like that. But you know, in the example that we gave about ankles and ankle circles as an exercise, it's like the reason why the exercise works is because it addresses a specific position and it addresses the specific demands that if you don't have preparation in that way, you're probably going to be more likely to sprain your ankle. So we can apply specificity in a rehab setting, because if your low back hurts when you touch the ground, then we need to work on mobility, strength, coordination, whatever, in a way that is specific for the activity you're trying to get better at. And it also works from a training standpoint. If you're a basketball player, then you need multi-directional explosiveness and speed. You need to have healthy tendons to manage all of the, you know, short ground contact, high impulse type of movements. And you probably need, from like a corrective standpoint, to get out of extension. And this is, I'm trying to segue us into PRI, but probably need to get out of extension, because not only is your sport very explosive in nature, but you're also playing defense like this. And a lot of the game involves you looking up. So you'll look up, your hands are up, and everything is always forward on the balls of your feet. And so this is where kind of like movement variability, AKA having the ability to do a lot of things with your body, get into a lot of positions, is helpful so that you never get stuck in any one. An overuse injury, by definition, is when you only do a few things all the time. And the way that you get out of, or the way that you can not have overuse injuries anymore, think like any tendinopathy, is you have to widen the breadth of your movement capability in order to do that. So bringing in PRI, I love PRI. I'm not like it's like, well, what's the difference between PRI and DNS and C and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think that conversation matters as much as, does it work for you? And do you understand it enough to be able to apply to the people that you work with?
Agreed.
Saying PRI is better than anything else. It's just works. It works for me, mainly because I think it's like, I look at it as like, if you just look at the body and training and rehab as like fresh out of school. It's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know why your neck hurts. I don't know how to assess anything. Then like, you're starting from a place of like, anything could work, which is super unhelpful. I think what PRI has provided me is like a understanding, first and foremost, that the body is naturally designed asymmetrically. And so rather than trying to make a asymmetrical body symmetrical, we should just understand that it's starting from this place naturally, and it's perfectly fine there. And if somebody becomes too asymmetrical, where they have lost movement on another side of their body, then it's just like kind of filling in the gaps, right? It's the same thing that I talked about before with an overuse injury, being that you have lost movement variability. It's that, but it's like, okay, well, you do see repeatable patterns with multiple people who all do different things. Well, there might be something to that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to kind of like summarize and bring it back, PRI is just the lens that I view movement through. And when you combine that baseline understanding and treatment style with the goal of developing specific positions and qualities within your athletes or the people that you work with, and also, so that helps with that. And then what I would say from like an implementation standpoint is like, if we move from a reactive state into a proactive state to where we're trying to address problems before they happen, I think that's also a very important piece of the puzzle. I think Pat Davidson said this where he was like, you get burned twice when you get injured. Once in the amount of time that it takes for you to feel healthy, and then second in the amount of time it takes you to get back to where you were before. And so unless you want to essentially every time you get hurt, you're getting burned 2 times. So it's actually you're taking 2 steps back, not just 1 step back. Then I think and then it's also just like, it shifts your mindset to like, okay, what do I need to do actively and proactively to stay healthy? And I think that's going to be the best for every single person, regardless of their athleticism or what they do with their bodies. It's shifting away from rehab and into just like wellness. Like, what can I do to have energy, to feel good moving, and to have like physical capacity so that I don't shrivel up and die?
A worthwhile pursuit.
Yeah. Grim, but true.
You know what I mean? So
totally. Love that.
Here's the thing, kind of taking it from the sometimes deeper end, the Kool-Aid cult fashion. Is there a piece of conventional PT lore, wisdom, advice that you think is outdated or just plain wrong?
I mean, I think rice is pretty much beat to the ground. Well,
rice is fucked.
Sometimes I question it, but I think generally speaking, it's pretty dead. Rather than like conventional I wouldn't even call it wisdom, but just like conventional advice, I think just for like listeners or whoever, anytime anyone says that you have to do something in order to get an outcome, I would question it. Like, you know, this kind of brings in like the biohacking people or like the optimizers, or like the body is so amazingly complex that if you don't do one thing, your brain and nervous system is going to find a way to get it done. That said, I do think it's important to have cornerstone habits in your pursuit of just like wellness and health. But, you know, as Ronnie said, like there's a lot of noise, and, you know, social media obviously doesn't help with that. And I think it creates a information environment where people are just very confused, when in reality, like the pursuit of health and wellness is not that complicated.
Damn, facts. It's so simple, isn't it?
Yeah, but unfortunately, you start to go, you know, ask your chat GPT, or you try to go to TikTok or Instagram, and it's just a cacophony of BS. And it's everyone that is trying to undercut their peer group or things like that, try to get their voice heard. And it's unfortunate because everyone then has to overcomplicate everything to make their thing feel like the most niche cut above, when it's just distilled down of like, how did it happen? How do we stop it from happening again? And how, like you said, make a very simple change to affect both the outcome and your quality of life. And it really is that simple. And it's just about consistency. But you can't sell that as a 3-month transformation or some kitschy thing, unfortunately.
I think on that note, like many people do not have the patience to delay gratification.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of the issue with just like the wellness and fitness and rehab space in general is like people want to sprint to their desired outcome, which I understand, but honestly, like but then you see like the yo-yo dieters as an example, right? Like they're trying to sprint to losing 20 pounds. And then how many of them, like what percent, I think it's like 80% or something.
Yeah.
Just go back to where they were before.
Or worse. Yeah.
And so like again, it just goes back to like, okay, well, what are the things that actually matter? The cornerstone habits. And when I start to integrate these things into my daily life in a way that is realistic for me, because everyone is different. And also probably more equally as important, in a way that I enjoy. And I think figuring out what that is, because that's going to look different for a dad. It's going to look different for a business owner and a dad. So again, I think you really have to know yourself, and also know when, and not be like persuaded into believing that like the only way that you can improve your body composition is with 4 strength training sessions, 10,000 steps per day, and a 90-10 split of like good nutrition. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that doesn't work. It obviously does, but like, if you get caught up in like, that's the only thing that's going to work for me, but I can't do that because I have a kid and I have, a pretty demanding job, then like now you feel like you've already failed and you haven't even done anything.
True. Yeah. You're fucked from the get-go. And that's obviously worse than anything. That's such a great, nugget of wisdom. Question around PT school, maybe a bit loaded, but do you feel like physical therapy school equips providers adequately to do what needs to be done once you're actually living in it?
No.
Okay.
I, at the same time though, like, it's like, how do you change the healthcare system?
Yeah.
How do you change the economy? You know what I mean? Like I'm not
Start
in a
over.
position. Well, yeah, I know, but like I'm not I was very critical of PT school coming out of PT school, but I've like really softened my let's call it like frustration or anger with my experience in PT school, because unless I actually have a solution and more importantly, I'm actively working to try and solve it, then I really can't say anything.
Man, that is a gem and a half. Like, wow.
Yeah. But also despite that, people love to complain with no intention of ever trying to fix it either.
But people complain about everything.
Yeah, it's true.
So then it's more like, I mean, to me, like, and I'm saying this as someone who has complained a lot about the shortcomings in my opinion, which might be true. But like, I feel like that's more of a person who's doing the complaining thing than a them thing. Unless you're going to fix it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, being able to reflect. What's that?
Like, I do have thoughts on how it could improve.
Yeah, I was going to say, so share some of those. Like, what were the biggest laments that you had? What started to soften? And like, what things would you change?
So first of all, grad school is very expensive, and it creates for the person graduating, right? It creates a economic hole that some people never get out of. And so if I'm looking at it, like, cause we're on the other side of that, right? So if I look at like the ROI on that, just strictly from a financial standpoint, if I never recover, then that's not a good investment.
I'd have to agree with you there. Yeah.
So okay, well then how do you make the investment more worthwhile? I mean, I think that you should be, it's tough. I don't know if, these are all just thoughts. I don't know if learning ortho, neuro, acute, peds, I think that's it. I'm probably missing something, whatever. But like, I don't think being a generalist is helpful if you're not going to stay a generalist. Right? Like, I've had this conversation with at least 5, people who are considering PT school, CSCS, like, what do I do? Whatever.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, like, spend as little money as possible, learning as much as you possibly can.
Damn.
So what that looks like practically is like what I would do, because hindsight is 2020. So like what I would do is I would get some kind of like, I would take my prereqs in order to get a CSCS, and then I would learn PRI, and I would read Pat Davidson's exercise. So like how he categorizes exercises. I think that's super helpful. I would learn, or I would look into understanding like program design. So you can go Tudor Bompa, you could look at Zatsiorsky, you could read those books. You can, Mike Young has a really good resource. Or, you could literally hit up any person on Instagram who you respect and you like their thought process and ask them how they got there. Right.
Yeah.
And you could do that for free. So the only thing that I've mentioned that you would have to pay for are the, you have to have a bachelor's degree to have CSCS, but would be like the prereqs. If you don't do that in your undergrad, it'd be taking the CSCS, it would be taking, like the PRI courses, and then like paying money for like a few books, and you can you could reach out to people and you could be like, hey, I'm looking for like, experience. I'm looking for literally anything that you can give me. And I would say, try not to come empty handed, learn a skill. Maybe social media. Maybe you have recognized that they're a legitimate expert in what they do, but they have no social media presence. And somehow that they're trying to build their business, or they have a product, but they're not promoting it well. Like, dude, I think it goes back to what I was originally saying of like, if you constantly ask questions and you're good at asking good questions, then you find a way to get to the same place of knowledge or expertise that doesn't necessarily have to put you in a $200,000 hole and spend 3 years getting it.
Yeah. Man,
there's plenty of good advice. I mean, you've had crazy gems this whole time, but
I know,
especially,
like, holy shit,
leveraging,
this guy.
Leveraging if you have a skill, whether it be if you're good with marketing or like lead generation or social media. I mean, that's generally a problem where a lot of like clinics, whether or not it's with the body, or I know dentists as well, is, they're head down, they're in the trenches, and they don't really get to think about marketing and social media. So that's a great way to get your foot in the door and be like, hey, I don't have any clinical hours. I really want to learn, but like, hey, can I leverage this and can I get a little bit of experience? So that's like huge advice.
Yeah.
Or I mean, like, let's say you become a legitimate, like, I don't want to say expert on social media, but like, if you do become really good at, because I'm specifically thinking of like younger Gen Z type kids. I call them kids, but younger people, like, they're really good at this internet thing, and that's like a default. They also understand trends. And so then it becomes like what expert or what clinic owner or what like really well-respected person in this field is going to say no to like, hey, I can get you 500,000 eyeballs per month. And in exchange, I just want you to mentor me and help me learn.
Yeah.
right? Because like otherwise you're coming to the table empty handed, and like, you know, like there's a lot of good people who are in this field because this field involves helping other people.
Right.
So they will probably help you out. And especially because, you know, a small minority of people actually reach out and ask for help. But I do think that if you have some kind of skill or some kind of leverage to bring to a negotiation like that, then like dude, you can do whatever you want.
And I think another thing that was also great that you pointed out was asking not just questions, but good questions. And if you are even coming semi-empty handed to someone who has a good amount of success in their particular field, I think even framing it differently of like, hey, what should I do? Which already sets the frame as you're like asking for something with open hands, rather than if you're asking a better question is like, hey, what did you do? Because people are often more apt to want to expound if like, oh, you think I'm successful? Yeah. What did you do? And what do you think was the most key takeaway in your arc and what you did? Generally, they're going to be much more forthright with that answer and probably expound a little bit more rather than like, hey, tell me what I need to do right now.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there's a lot to how to ask the right questions.
Yeah, you opened up with, you know, talking about seeking the truth, right? So this is a skill that you've cultivated in yourself. Maybe it's dumb. How do you work that skill of refining your critical thinking and question asking? Or maybe how have you done that? You don't need to tell someone else how they should do it, but how have you done it?
Generally speaking, see, putting me on the spot. There's two things I'm thinking of right now, and maybe more will come to mind. But the first one is lower your pride. I find that as soon as you, I mean, it's like, you know how like, just like little sayings or whatever, like they're like, yeah, I've heard that before. But like the reason why you've heard it multiple times is because it shit works, right? But like, when you start to assume that you know, you start to ask less questions. And when you assume that you don't know, then you start to ask more questions. And then I always, like, I've kind of walked people through this process, like just like friends or more so like kind of like mentee type people, where it's like, you know, they're like, well, how do I ask questions? It's like, okay, well, don't just think of like random questions that you can ask. Like, what's the next logical question? What's the next question that actually makes sense? Because maybe it starts with, like, if you give someone a scenario, or if you give me a scenario of like, how can I get that person who I respect a lot to help me with my direction? It's like what Daniel was saying, it's like, what should I do is maybe your first question. It's like, okay, well, what's the next logical question? What books do I need to read? It's like, okay, well, okay, on that same thought process, what programs do I need to try for myself? Would it be better to try a program so that I can feel what a periodized training program feels like? Or would it be better to read about the subject? Like, that's a pretty decent question to ask a trainer, right?
Yeah.
And then if it's the practical experience of having gone through a 12-week training cycle, then do you have any that you would recommend? And I'm specifically looking to put on more muscle mass, but also not lose the ability to move well. And then in my head, I'm like, look at Pat Davidson. Pat Davidson is highly skilled and very knowledgeable about movement, but he also is a competitive bodybuilder now, right? Look at everything that Pat Davidson has ever put out. That's not going to cost you a whole lot of money. It might cost you a little bit of time, but ChatGPT, you know what I'm saying? Like,
that's right. Yeah. Summarize that bitch.
Yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, like I think it's important if you're trying to gain wisdom and understanding, like, you can't be prideful, and you have to remain in a student mindset, even if people are saying like, oh, wow, you're so smart or you're so good at what you do. It's like, I appreciate it. But at the same time, like, that's not going to change my perspective. I'm always going to be a student because I always want to keep learning and keep understanding and keep knowing. I would also say the other side of that, which might be a little bit more nuanced, is like, allow for time in your schedule to not do anything. Like, creativity. Everyone, like, people say they're not creative, but it's because they're always freaking busy doing something. Like, they're always looking at them. So like, this kind of gets into like going back to like the key cornerstone habits. One of them, I think, is minimizing stress and being very selective on what you give your attention to. So that's like learning how to control your mind, and our thoughts. I think your thoughts are directly connected to your internal, like, emotional state. So if I'm always thinking like about the future and just worrying about the past and always thinking about the future and always worrying about the past, like, I'm never present. And it's hard to be creative, which will limit your ability to ask good questions and think deeply about things because you're always somewhere else. So I would say I would probably start with learn how to become present. And then, like, if it's a matter of like developing the skill of asking questions, just like write, go pen to paper and like just write questions and go deeper and deeper and deeper. Do you guys know what mind mapping is? Cause I think that's a really helpful activity to do.
I've heard of it, but do you want to enlighten?
Yeah, I'll explain. So like, if you give me like, can you give me like a topic? It could be anything.
Let's say, cleanliness, like organization,
like around the house type deal.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm going to change it a little bit. Let's say like fitness, right?
Okay.
If in the middle, so you have an open piece of paper and in the middle, it's like, what's the, like the 20,000 foot concept or idea? Then let's say it's like, health, circle that, put it in the middle. And then think like, what's the next level lower or more specific that you can get into? Okay. From health, then I draw a line and I draw a circle and it's fitness. From health, I draw a line, I draw a circle and it's relationships. From health, I draw a line and it's a circle and it's, nutrition.
Sleep.
Yeah. Recovery, right? And then from fitness, then it's like resistance training, then it's cardio training, then it's stretching and mobility, then it's injury prevention. And then from relationships, it's like family versus like romantic versus like friends. So like my point is like it's a way that you can organize your thoughts because like a lot of people are just like popcorn brain. It's a way that you can organize your thoughts on paper. And then if you imagine that kind of like tree that, or that mind map that's filled out, then you can ask questions based on the different topics that you've picked. And let's say it's like resistance training. Then it's like, okay, let's see, what are some questions about resistance training? What's the right amount of volume? What's the right amount of weekly volume to be able to see an improvement in hypertrophy? Or do I have to do 2 hours of zone 2 training like Peter Attia said in his book? Or like, is there a way that I can minimize that because I'm a right? Like, so you're already asking better questions and you can kind of like think things through in that way. That's just an example.
No, Kyle, great. Is that similar to, and I'm not very familiar with this technique, but is this adjacent or the same thing of how people have like various levels of advanced note taking? That's like basically trying to distill it down to the simplest ideas, even graphically, to better do like learning, recall, and assimilation.
Yeah. There's, again, it's the whole thing of like, this isn't the only thing to do, right? Like anything that gets your ideas out of your head and onto paper, I think paper is better than digital just because it's so easy to get distracted if you're on your notes app on your phone. Like you're one notification away from that's just pointless. But like there's another technique that I learned from a guy who's really good with like mental training for athletes specifically. He talks about morning pages. So you basically first thing in the morning. So before you just start comparing your life to other people on social media and blah, blah, blah.
Phone, yeah.
Yeah. Before you do any of that, it's like a specific kind of journaling where you have an open page and you write and your pen can't stop moving. So it's just, you get it all out, all out, all out, all out. And as soon as you feel like you're just done, you stop and then look at it. And then it's like, that's going to include things that you're worrying about. That's going to include things that you need to do, like to-do items. That's going to include, let's say like emotional things that you haven't processed yet. And then now from that just brain dump, you can then segment that into other things. So let's say you have a notes, like, I think being organized, nice. I think being organized is
hell yeah.
cool. Like I have a notes app where it's like to do. I have a notes app that's like emotion. I have a notes app that's like things that I'm worried about that I have no control over. Right. So like you can like pull things from your just dump and you can put it in those areas and then you can like sift through that at a later time.
Right on.
Yeah, that's a great exercise. That sounds, mildly intimidating at first because it's like a morning vomit where you're like, okay, here we go. Purge my soul onto the paper.
Yeah.
Well, so what it really does though is it frees up your mind to think. Because think about it, like the reason why we're popcorn braining is because we have a bunch of stuff up there that doesn't have a place. So now you can take all those thoughts, worries, whatever things that you need to do, you can put them in a place and it just frees you up to then be able to either act on those things or do something else. Like now I'm not worried about that because I know where it is. I can find it. I don't have to think about it.
True. Yeah. There's a place to revisit it as opposed to like, fuck, did I remember to change the laundry or does it smell like shit and it's still sitting in the wet bin, and you're like, no, I wrote it down and I have my list of things to do. That's not real, by the way. My laundry is great at the moment. So
it's immaculate.
Everybody judging me. That's like, oh, this guy stinks.
This guy stinks.
I didn't mean to take it all there, but
no, dude, the point is to chat and talk and, pick your brain. And if that's your brain, like, let it out. So that's,
and inspire other people with your good ideas.
Yeah. There's a lot of, so many good gems of just like things that I'm excited to listen back to. And just, Daniel and I are both very, heavy minded, deep thinking people that get, sort of lost in the sauce. So it's always fun chatting with other people who I know have flirted with the dark abyss of all of the thoughts. That being said, before we start to, close out, I just want to open up, some things that are Kyle that are not necessarily PT or fitness or anything. Like, what else do you love? Like, what's the shit that gets you super excited besides helping people that,
I really like, I have a 5-year-old daughter, so anything that involves hanging out with her is awesome.
Yeah.
I like playing the ukulele.
Nice.
A little bit of right brain activity is good. I like getting out into nature, snowboarding, going to the beach. I really like to, you probably tell, but I really like to think about things. There's just so much going on. Like there's so much going on in the world that we can't control. I tend not to think about those things.
Sure.
But just you guys could probably relate, like just being a business owner. And I'm trying to find the balance between like, obviously like financial success and being able to provide, but also to not have to sacrifice my sanity or my health in order to do that. And I think the only way that you can find peace is to be very intentional about what you put your focus on and how you spend your time.
Yeah.
So actually, to answer your question, one of the things that I'm really trying to prioritize is like, what do I enjoy doing? Because I got in a pretty deep hole of like, I don't need to do anything fun, which is dumb.
It's the American dream curse of just like fucking run yourself dry and produce, soldier, like press onward. And and you're like, what?
No, for sure.
Have you ever explored any type of psychoactive things, like as a deep thinker? Like, do you feel like that's something that would be too spooky? No.
Nah, I have. I don't think you need to, though, in terms of like I think it's a good, like, I'm not like recommending, right? But like, I think it's I would say this, anything that helps you to get out of the just monotonous day to day is helpful. Could be a vacation, could be 20 minutes of just like going on a walk outside and leaving your phone at home. It could be meditation. It could be psychoactive things. It could be prayer for some people. It could be writing. Like, it doesn't matter. But it's just so easy to like get caught up in the rat race and the day to day. And then you're like, oh, shit, it's been 5 years.
Whoa, like where did that life go?
You know what I mean? Like, I haven't even come up for breath. And like, I mean, this is kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, but like, I always question like what's worth it and what's just not worth it. Like, what game am I really trying to play? If I'm trying to, like, you know, we gotta provide, we gotta make some money, right? Yeah. But like, how much money is enough was a question that one of my friends asked me, and I was like, $15K a month.
A little more. Yeah.
And they're like, why? And I was like, didn't have a good answer. And then it's like, well, what if you got, you know, like, let's say you make 5 a month. Like, if you got 7, do you think you would want 10? You got 10, do you think you want 20?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, when does that game end?
It does not, I don't think. Yeah.
I'm actually reading it's a good book. It's called The Art of Spending, but it talks a lot about contentment. And like why we spend money on the things that we spend money on. And oftentimes we spend money on things not for ourselves. And I think you can insert the word like attention in there also. And it also applies too. So I think the older I get, like the more I realize as much as we think we don't have control over a lot of things, you have control over your mind. And if you can control that, then I think that automatically allows you to be able to control how you feel.
Yeah. So, which is like a superpower. I don't think that's appreciated enough. All of the things that mute us to make sure we're not really feeling anything, right? Like you said, the popcorn brain and just wild distractions and anything but silence and, you know, deepening the thought well. But awesome. That's great, man. We're going to be talking about, you know, how the stars formed and which one was first and before we know it. So, that's good stuff. Where can people connect with you? How do you, you know, want, folks to find you, reach out if they have questions, if they want to see your work, if they're in California? Where in California specifically?
Orange County. I'm like,
okay, so
I'm like, well, I work out of Costa Mesa, which is like 30 minutes south of Disneyland. And then I live in South Orange County, so it's about 30 minutes from there. But I'm kind of all over the place, especially like in the summer, working with pros, like wherever they are. But as far as like where, I mean, if people want to find me, they can find me on Instagram. I think it's Dr. Kyle Iguchi. I don't know if there's a period. I think there's a period in there. No, actually, I don't think there's a period in there.
I don't think there is.
Okay, thanks, appreciate it. But Dr.
Yeah,
Kyle,
but yeah, we will add the appropriate name. Wait, and so I have to ask too, was it not Dr. Dunks in the past?
It was.
All right.
He said you were a pretty big sneakerhead at one point, or probably still.
Sneakerhead?
Yeah.
I was, and then not anymore. Again,
Okay.
it's just like the same thing of like shit doesn't matter. You know what I mean? You only got 2 feet at a time.
It's true.
It's also a lot of money. It's also
They are a lot of money, or they can be, yeah. But to each their own, I suppose.
Don't get me wrong. I enjoy shoes, but I'm not like, if I haven't, generally speaking, like this is like so beside the point. But if there's something in my closet I haven't worn, assuming it's the same season, in 6 months, I just donate it.
That's it. That's a good philosophy.
Yeah, I'm a big clothes purger as well.
Yeah,
Kyle, do you caffeinate at all?
Yeah. Not like, but like,
you're very much in the company of people. So don't stress on that. We're not going to judge. We do have a signature question on the Long and Thick podcast though. So, you have one idyllic day. You're just going to be solo. I know you have a lovely family, lovely daughter, but you're just going to be solo. One day, no responsibilities. Where are you and how are you taking your coffee?
Where am I? Solo? I'm outside for sure.
It can be anywhere on Earth, by the way. You're not sequestered to where you currently are in Orange County.
I'm in Japan.
Hell yeah.
My dog.
Yeah.
I've never been, surprisingly. I'm Japanese. I've never been, but yeah.
It's our favorite place on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So the post-Japan like depression is like a real thing.
Oh my God, like no other, bro. You're pissed getting on the plane. You're like, fuck, how do I get this back? And I haven't even left yet.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm out there. And how do I take my coffee? I like flat whites a lot.
Dope.
Sick. Incredible. I love it, man.
Sounds idyllic to us for sure.
What about you guys? I'm just curious how you drink your coffee.
It could be pour over, latte, cortado. That's like usually the top 3.
Okay.
Somewhere has like some very strange, obscure, like banger, seasonal something, but it's usually just either pour over or cortado.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about you?
Right. Normally I'll go for like a pour over as well, or usually some type of maybe like cappuccino or like thicker latte, but it really depends. Like we get real lost in the sauce of coffee and all that stuff. So
if you saw our interest map when we were in Japan, we were also 4 to 6 coffee visits a day deep, just because we had so many shops on the list to hit, and we hit most of them. So
yeah.
Did you guys? This is like such a shot in the dark. But did you go to Kyoto?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Did you stop by Sunny George by chance?
Did not.
No.
What is Sunny George?
I don't even know what that is.
So I'm making a product, and one of our design team, there's 2 guys, and one of them is the owner of Sunny George Coffee.
Well, I'm going to be in Kyoto in December, so I'm putting it on the list right now.
I just pulled it up because I really did not want to forget that. Oh, how cool. Hell yeah, dude.
We went to a place called Wife and Husband Coffee while we were there. And it's like, its place is basically a closet full of like knickknacks and old chairs. And they have like 4 seats, and they just serve drip coffee and toast. And it was pretty rad.
That's how you know they got to be good.
Yeah, it was dope.
If you only do two things, like,
yep,
you're either out of business or you're doing well.
Yes,
for sure.
Agreed.
All right, St.
Amazing.
George, there it is. It's on the list. Hell yeah,
Got
I'm
it
excited.
saved. Kyle, it has been an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad we got the chance to do this. I love, as much as we shit on Instagram and all the social media isms that, have been maladaptive to our people. Every time we get to talk to somebody, I'm like, we never would have had this conversation. Like, total strangers. And so thank you so much for your openness and your, willingness to spend your time on what's the preemptive weekend, I hope. And yeah, just an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah. Big thanks on just being also incredibly inspirational and insightful too. I mean, I'm sure you're a wizard with the body, but clearly you also have an equal command of the mind and philosophy too. So it was a absolute pleasure having you on, man. It was sick.
Still a student, but appreciate you guys. That was fun.
Hell yeah. Right on, man.
All right, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah. We'll catch you next time on the Long and Thick. Toodaloo.
Peace.